I'm not gonna lie, I think I might have just fried the power supply. The CPU is overheating or like extremely hot. And so I was like, what the heck? Like he didn't say nothing about this too. I found like some weird thing with the graphics card. And I was kind of like, at this point, I probably got scammed. Welcome to episode 3, where we will face many hurdles along the way that try to stop us on our way to 20,000. So what exactly were these problems? And were they really that bad? Well, let's get started with the first loss of the video, which isn't as bad as the ones we will see later on. So right now we're on the way to pick up a computer, and it has an i5 12600KF along with a GTX 970, but the graphics card is pretty trash, right? It's pretty old, but the CPU and motherboard are actually pretty phenomenal, and I'm getting the bundle for around $250, so I would argue that's still a pretty good bargain. So that's what I'm gonna go pick up right now. I'm gonna go see if there's any issues and talk to the dude, see how it goes, and hopefully we get a deal from here. So we actually took an L with this one. We kind of wasted our time. So we went to go check out the computer, right? And then
in 1 mile,
off rip, he brought his monitor downstairs. He didn't really have the computer ready. Like, he was just kind of everywhere. So basically, with the first monitor, it simply wouldn't even like turn on. Like, the monitor wouldn't boot into BIOS or anything like that. And then it marked the red light like right away. I couldn't tell what it was, and then I told him that that's usually not good. But then he was like, oh, it's just trying to boot into the storage. He's like, well, of course. And then he was kind of giving me like attitude. So just off that, it was already off to a bad start. And then he finally brought downstairs the other monitor that was where it was supposedly working. That was when it marked the same code, but then it finally booted. And then keep in mind, this monitor he actually tried to sell with the computer, but it had like a massive scratch on it, which he didn't even highlight in the description or anything. And in the picture, you can see the scratch, I will say that. But it's like really hard to see. So in a way, like somebody could have been wanting to check that out, and then they could have been hit with a surprise by not seeing like that there's a massive scratch on the monitor, right? And so sure, it booted up, but then right away, as it booted up, it also gave the code. The CPU is overheating or like extremely hot. And so I was like, what the heck? Like he didn't say nothing about this too. And it obviously would have showed for him. So I'm sure you saw that message as well, but there's no point in getting mad at people. You don't really gain much. So I was like, it's running really hot. Like, what's the best you'd be able to do for it? Like, you gotta at least drop it a bit. And then he was like, no, it's cool. And then it kind of ended off with the kind of like a bitter interaction, you know?
Use the left 2 lane.
The dude was pretty weird. I could tell he was trying to hide some things, or I'm hoping not intentionally, but that's really what it seemed like. And so I ended up leaving. I'm not gonna waste my time with that. And we'll move on to the next deal. Our first deal didn't go as smoothly as I would have wanted, but that doesn't mean we stopped. And because we didn't stop looking, we eventually stumbled across this beast of a computer. This build has a Ryzen 7 7700X along with an RTX 4070 Ti Super. Would you like to take a guess at the price I paid for it? Well, you are probably wrong, but before we go too deep into it, we have some issues to address. In the last episode, I finished 2 builds, but after stressing them a bit, I noticed that the temperatures weren't really that good, so I decided to go back and add additional fans to each one. Starting off with this older build, which I like to refer to as Oldie, because it's old and oldie, you know, you get it, you get it. And the next build we added additional fans to was actually one that I named Panda, for obvious reasons. Now that we fixed the temperatures on these bad boys, we can now address the computer that we purchased along with another one that I purchased a couple days after. So within the past 3 days, I managed to get 2 great deals, and they're right here next to me. Now for the computer up here, I actually paid $350 for the build, and the one down here I actually paid $1,100. Now we're gonna start off with the top. Now this is a build that actually has an i5 12400F along with an RTX 4060. And I ended up picking this build up yesterday. Now off rip, the case does have some minor issues, but honestly for the price, anybody would go for this PC. I just happened to get it really early, and on top of that, it was a Sunday, so people kind of sleep towards the weekend, which is where I kind of swoop in whenever I can. So anyways, this build actually has a couple issues, starting off with the side glass. Now this isn't actually glass, and it's actually plastic. Luckily, it's not like scratched up, or at least not yet. Hopefully I don't scratch it along the way. Also, that acrylic is actually not even like, it wasn't created nicely in my opinion. Like the edge doesn't fit flushly. It's if I kind of run my finger across the edge of the glass, you'll kind of see it slowly narrow down, and that's because it's not aligned. They didn't do the screw holes right for this acrylic basically. So they kind of cheaped out there, and it makes sense. The dude told me that he got it for like $900 on Newegg. And it's not good, not bad price, it's all right. But other than that, it also has cheaper parts in general. Obviously, you can't really cheap out on like the CPU, the graphics card, but I'm sure they cheaped out on the power supply and the motherboard, because the motherboard itself is like the Osao, which is, I'm guessing, like a Chinese AliExpress type of motherboard brand, because I've never seen this brand when it was like booting up. But I also purchased the 64 gigs of RAM from the guy, and then I was confused because he has a 64 pair kit of RAM, but he has a 32 kit installed into the PC. So I was kind of suspicious. I was like, maybe this RAM kit does not work or something, because otherwise why would he not have it in the case? So I was asking him like, why would you do that, right? And then his response was that the black kit kind of looks better sometimes to him, and he doesn't like lighting as much, even though his whole PC is like lights and stuff. So I was like, cool, what's the price you'd let it go for? Because if it was a good price, I'll still go for them, even though it's kind of suspicious. And it was like 30 bucks. So I was like, 30 bucks, 64 gigs of RAM, that's a steal. I'm gonna take that. So now we can actually move on to the PC down here, which is the one I paid $1,100. Now, if you take a really close look at it, you'll notice that it's missing a GPU. Now, you might be thinking, why would you ever pay $1,100 for a PC without the GPU? And that's because it did have a GPU, but I actually sold it. And I'll explain how it happened. So 2 days ago is actually when I purchased the PC. And then I'm in these little community posts within my city. And ever so often somebody comes up and say, oh, I'm looking for this GPU. I have this amount of money in hand. And then somebody was looking for an RTX 4070 Ti Super. Now, coincidentally, that was the same exact GPU that I had in this build. So I was like, if you could do $950 for mine, you could just take it. Now, granted, GPU prices are through the roof. If you're flipping PCs like me, you would kind of see that everywhere on eBay, and all online prices are kind of crazy. And me personally, I don't think that's gonna last long. And if it does, I'm still able to get good prices because there's so many deals coming in locally. So I was like, hey, just come pick it up. He came and picked it up the same day. I let him test it out in this exact build. He loved the card, and he was actually building he wasn't building the computer. He was just getting the card for a PC for a PC that a friend had, where his graphics card had broken down. So him and his buddies were kind of collaborating to get a 4070 Ti Super, and that's pretty kind of them. But yeah, that's the reason it doesn't have a GPU right now. But now you're kind of left wondering what else is in the build. So the CPU is actually a Ryzen 7 7700X. It has 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM. I believe it's a B650 motherboard. And it also has a pretty sick ass like cooler. This is like I don't know the exact name. Corsair has like so many coolers, but I'll pop up a clip right here. But yeah, it's a 240 millimeter cooler, 750 watt, be quiet PSU. I would argue that's a pretty decked out build. AM5, probably this exact computer as it is right now, without the graphics card, would run over like 1,000 or somewhere along those lines, right? So that is how I ended up with the build. These two, like I said, picked up locally. And they're right here in the garage with me because I'm going to give them a clean. And that's what I'll throw up some clips of doing right now. So as you guys can see, we now actually have the computer in my room, and I have a couple changes in mind, starting off with swapping out the GPU. Now this GPU is actually an RX 5700 XT that I paid $70. Now there's a risk to this because I still haven't tested it out, even though it's probably something that I should have done right after I purchased it. The guy seemed very trustworthy, so I took his word on it. So we'll just have to see. Now the reason is because the CPU isn't necessarily the best. The 12400F, it's alright, but even though these two cards will perform the same, AMD won't nearly sell as much as NVIDIA, always. So because of that, I'm gonna just put a 5700 XT that I got for cheaper and use the RTX 4060 when I have like a 13600K build, maybe even an i7 12700 something. We'll just have to see, but that's my thought process behind why I'm swapping the card. On top of that, I might do a little bit of organizing. It won't be much though. But yeah, you guys will see the end product right here after I'm finished organizing it, and hopefully take some pictures to show you guys. So I spent quite a bit of time on this PC, and I'll show you guys why, because I found like some weird thing with the graphics card. And I was kind of like, at this point, I probably got scammed. And this is what I found, right? So I was looking through this, and I ran 3 benchmarks, right? I ran Furmark, I ran Heaven 4.0, I ran OCCT, and in all of them, the core clock would always stay like within 1,000 to like 1,100. And then I also, the thing that pointed it out right away was that the Heaven 4.0 score was literally like way below what it should be. Like literally there was benchmarks with the Ryzen 5 3600 instead of this, where it performed like way better than this. And this is a benchmark that isn't getting updated, so usually it should have a set score. So I was suspicious, but just before I got there, I just went and tested out on OCCT and Furmark, and the same thing. I couldn't see the core clock kind of boost up to the way it should be. But then I did some research. As you can see, there's some threads over there, and then I just kind of kept looking. I eventually even installed 3D Mark, and then this is my first time using it, and I actually really like it now. This might be like the new way to go. And that gave me a score, and I was kind of looking at the results. And then this is after, well, before I was getting 1600, and it was marking that the average was around 2100, right? So off rip, I was like, what's going on? Like 1600 compared to 2100 on average. So there's something completely wrong with this. And so I kept digging, and then I kept looking at these, because if you download this software, which is hardware info, it shows you everything. So I just kept digging to see if anything stood out, and I just kept going and going and going, and that's when I saw this, right? So GPU PPT limit, apparently that's like the power limit of the graphics card, and it was set to 100. So as you can see, the limit is set to 100 when this should be around I believe it's 200 watts. So then, in order to confirm this, I went into MSI Afterburner and I turned up the limit by 50. And lo and behold, the benchmarks and everything were running significantly better. And the card was now actually getting hot, because when you're running a graphics card and if you put your hand up here, if it's been running good, it gets really hot up here. And so that's kind of what I figured out. But now I'm kind of stuck, because the 5700 XT should have a power limit of like 200 and something, and then I'm limited to 150 watts on the MSI Afterburner, you see, because for some odd reason the wattage is stuck at 150. Well, I mean 100. That was what it was stock, so that's why it looks like 150 now, because I added 50. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it has to do with BIOS or something. I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper to see what else I find online, or maybe something else. But worst case scenario, I'm gonna find this exact model of the card and flash the BIOS. Now, if you guys know or have seen some of my videos in the past, I've actually flashed like 10 RX 580s that were like mined on for like the longest time. So I have a bit of experience. So hey, we could finally put it to use with this build back here, and we'll see. Maybe we remove the power limit, maybe we don't. Man, I really wanted this card to work, but it simply would not. I tried every program, AMD VB Flash, I tried different BIOSes from different cards, and it always gave me a code saying that it couldn't flash the spy ROM or something like that. And after like probably like 2 hours of trying, I just threw the towel, moved on with different cards, and ended up putting the exact RTX 4060 that I removed from the build back into it and calling it a day. So after I finished that build, I actually got contacted by somebody that was interested in the wood build that I created in the last episode. And they didn't really haggle me at all on the price, but they just told me that they were ready to pick it up the next day. And they came, and I'll show a little clip of that interaction right here. So somebody is planning to stop by in around 20 minutes or so. Let's see, hopefully he doesn't flake or anything, but he already told me he's at the ATM, so it seems to me that he's pretty interested. So we'll just wait and see. I'm just installing the latest drivers since they came out after the last video. So I'm installing that, making sure everything's ready, and he just asked to have like the Heaven 4.0 benchmark ready, so that's exactly what I did. And then just cleaning everything up, and hopefully we get the sale. I also will be asking the dude if I could record this so I can put a clip up here, but if he says no, then I won't be able to give you guys some footage, but hopefully he says yes.
It was very difficult to make money in. So I started doing the same thing, content, that kind of thing, for other companies instead.
How was that transition from gaming to companies instead?
Well, so I was doing content, I was creating videos, I was setting up sponsorships with companies, all the stuff that I was doing, the same principles, just shifted over to a different industry, right? So all the processes, the social media, building the content, the editing, the kind of things that go viral, all that stuff translates over to whatever industry. It's just the skills that you have to have.
I see.
Yeah.
I see the same thing with buying and selling computers, because I see that it translates to cars, to pretty much anything buying and selling. Maybe houses is kind of too far, but you kind of learn a little bit of everything buying and selling things.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same way for you, but...
Yeah, and I only buy these now because I give one to every single employee.
Really?
Yeah, and it looks like it's rocking and rolling just fine. It's taking the heat and everything.
Yeah, but...
Oh yeah, that's not a problem. I hope it'll fit.
Do you have any tips for me?
Any what?
Any tips?
Any tips as far as content goes? Stay consistent, man.
Yeah.
Even though it'll be really tough and there will be plenty of chances to give up on it, the people that make it are the ones that just don't stop. And that's really the science to it. You know, you don't have to have the best editing in the world. You don't have to have the best anything. But if you focus on just not stopping, you'll beat out 90% of the market. Because most people just give up.
Do you guys remember what I said in the beginning about not stopping and all that? I swear I didn't plan this, and it wasn't until later that I noticed that what the dude had said was almost exactly what I said earlier in this episode, in the little catchphrase where I said, but just because we got a bad deal, we don't stop. So it's interesting that kind of aligned, you know? So some little thing that I pointed out. But anyway, continuing the storyline. So after we sold that, maybe around the same time, I got another message from a buyer that was interested in the Panda build. And interestingly enough, a couple days after, he was actually telling me that he could stop by to pick it up. And that is exactly what happened, because he stopped by, he checked it out. And I'll show another clip of the interaction here. But yeah, no script.
No, you're good.
That's how the interaction goes, I guess. But even then, I don't really post convos, put a clip. That way people see something. But yeah, I just started doing this too, like the YouTube thing, maybe 3-4 months ago.
Okay. How is it going so far?
It's humbling, to say the least. Because you start off with like 20 views for like 20 videos, and then still to this day I only get like 300. So it's you gotta just stay consistent at it. But I say 3 months, but then people will say like years. So you look at the views a little bit. I don't really mind it too much now. It's kind of like going to the gym.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same way, yeah.
So this is like, they compare it to people with other systems, and then it kind of gives you an average. This right here in the middle would be an average. It's performing good, but I can't remember if I undervolted it a bit for temperatures. I know the graphics card like 60 hertz.
Let's say I didn't.
So let's say you're viewing this. So let me just show you, because
Okay.
this one right here will give you an example. The harder part about doing this is probably paying attention to details, which over time. After selling these two bills, I basically had nothing listed anymore. So I kept looking and looking and looking, and eventually I stumbled across two deals locally. Now I say this like it's in a short time frame, like out of nowhere, but this stuff takes time. Like you need to throw countless offers and this and that. And that is the reason why I get so much computer circulating for me. And so, not out of nowhere, like I said, I eventually got my hands on two computers, and we're going to attend the second garage session of the episode and go over what they have and how they look so far. Down here, I have two computers that I recently purchased off Marketplace. So let's cut the suspense and let's talk about what they have and what condition they're in so we can get right to cleaning them and listing them up for sale soon. So this is the first computer of the batch, and it is honestly already fairly clean. But as far as parts, it has a Ryzen 5 5600X along with an RTX 3060. Now the issue that I spotted right away was that the fans flicker pretty badly. You'll see it throughout these clips that the fans kind of flicker. And I later found out that all four of these RGB fans, or really just turquoise fans, were connected to one fan connector, which made it hard for the computer to power all of them at the same time. This next build that I purchased is actually a lot better, a lot more beefier, but unlike the other PC, this one isn't actually very clean. Luckily, the price more than justifies this, coming in hot with the price of $500. And of course, how could we have a garage session without an actual cleaning? So here's a quick time lapse of everything I did. So right behind me, right here, I have the computer that we just cleaned, or at least one of them. And then before I get to testing them, I actually want to do this one thing, which is take photos of this one. Now I'll explain what I want to do real quick. Now in the last episode, I showed you guys that this Timetech RAM did not work on this one, not because the sticks were bad, but because this brand is simply not supported by this older motherboard. So because we have some G-Skill RAM right here, we're going to swap these RAMs into this one and then use these Timetech ones on this build right here. So that's the plan. And then after, now that we have this computer all assembled and stuff, and because I have it here in the first place, I'm going to take some quick photos of it and then list it up for sale tomorrow. So after getting the RAM installed, I had to go in and actually take pictures of the build, and here are some quick clips of me doing that. So we just got done taking pictures of this bad boy, but we messed up, and I'll tell you guys why. So I thought this was a measly 16 gigabytes of RAM. But then as I'm looking down here, we got 32 gigabytes. So that 32 gigs is way too much. So those pictures are basically useless now because I'm not going to use a 32 gigabyte stick of RAM for a computer that has an i7 7700 and a 1060, so it's kind of useless. So we will probably be just saving those for another build maybe. But here's the thing, I do have a plan for this build. So let me try to explain bit by bit. So I obviously swapped out the RAM. This was the Pinnacle RAM that I was originally intending to slap on here, but didn't work. So we're gonna use that RAM right there. We're going to install thermal right fans just because these are fixed dye blue. They don't change colors. They're basically like a turquoise type of color. And on top of that, we're going to be swapping the graphics card because so what I was trying to say here is that it looks awkward because the graphics card is shorter than the motherboard. So I think that looks a bit awkward, but we have a solution. So we have this EVGA RTX 2060 that we're gonna slap on here. And this one would actually fill it up quite nicely. And then from there, we actually have a CPU cooler. We're gonna slap it on there for that 5600X. And then that one we could maybe use with the 3600 build and maybe paint it white eventually. So that's what I have planned so far. Other than that, this computer won't take me long. It's probably like an hour or two once I get all the parts in. But for now, we're just gonna stick to installing the graphics card and swapping out the coolers. So it's gonna put some B-roll of that. Now I've got to say, this build turned out amazing, but just after I took these videos for you guys, disaster struck. I'm not gonna lie, I think I might have just fried the power supply. And it's over such a dumb reason. So basically what I was doing, I was literally just taking photos, right? I was right here. And then I was moving the computer back and forth. And because this wasn't really plugged in well, it was like slightly unplugged. And then I saw that. And then I kind of jiggled it to push it in. And then all of a sudden the lights and everything flickered and it turned off. And so now every time I plug it in, it's like getting no power like at all. And I turn it on, and then usually before there was a motherboard light right there. Now we're getting nothing even when I try to turn it on. I tried clearing the CMOS on it, no luck. So hopefully what I've tried so far was I pulled out the power supply tester right here. I plugged in this one, but not that one up top, so I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. But what I'm going to do right now is take out another power supply and see if it boots up correctly through that. I'm going to just plug it in through the 3 regular plugs, test it out, and if it works, we're just going to have to swap out the power supply, unfortunately. So it is what it is. It wasn't all the way connected, and then I literally just jiggled this, and it fucking, I don't know, bro. So right here, we have this kind of Frankenstein build right here. And let's see what happens. Of course, still need to plug this in. All right. Look at that. Right away we get the motherboard light. So off rip, I'm pretty sure the power supply is fried, bro. Let's make sure it didn't fry anything else. So it's turning on. Let me plug in the monitor while I'm at it. the very least, it seems like nothing else is fried, but who knows? Okay, yeah. So at the very least, it's probably just the power supply. So RIP this shit power supply. So we won't be able to slap this one on there. This one's 850 watts, so don't want to use it. And I just checked my inventory and I literally have nothing. We might not have nothing in stock for that computer, but you know who always does? My good old friend Jeff Bezos. And while Amazon might not have that many graphics cards, I'll tell you what, it definitely has some power supplies and they're a bit overpriced. And I will say that I definitely overpaid for mine. But nevertheless, I ordered an MSI B650 off Amazon and it came in about 2 days ago and I got it installed. Everything, thank God, ran phenomenally. I didn't have any issues and luckily didn't fry anything else. So we have that build up and ready and it's currently posted. Now, as far as the other build, which is the one that's really flashy right behind me, we didn't do much to it other than the cleaning, right? But we did make some changes, starting off with the rim. So this right here is actually the piece that goes in front of the AIO for the computer. Now this is obviously CyberPower, I believe's branding. Now I believe it looks ugly. And what I plan to do is use this vinyl, which is like a carbon fiber type of thing. Wrap it over, probably flat on there, and then putting it back into the computer. Some scissors. Now we get to the knife part. Trim off as closely as I can to the edge. Let me just crease it a bit so it's easier to track. There you go. Now, whenever you do this, it's not gonna come out perfect, right? But get it as close as you can to it. And it should be pretty good. See? And then just pop it back on. And you can't really see much of a difference. It actually just looks like a plain black video, but as soon as you put it on the sun, I think it'll look a lot better. So that's what we have so far. Other things I'm gonna probably change is the cable extensions because it's just like a bit wonky like that. And then maybe the fans, I'm still contemplating it. Or if anything, I'll probably put like a sticker right here that's black. We'll just have to see. That's what we have so far. So as you guys can see, we already have the wrap on. And as you can see, it looks alright. I think I still need to give it a little clean. I might have it a bit dirty or something. But now we need to address these, which I will replace with some cable extensions, as well as this one. But I'll have to go back and reorganize everything. So that's the plan for right now, and I'll get that swapped right now too.
Hold on, let me save myself.
Now that we have made it to the end of the episode, let's talk about profit. So how much did I end up making for each of the build? So if you remember, I sold 2 computers in this episode, and the first one I sold was actually the wood build. Now for the wood cypress build, I actually paid $174 for it, and then I sold it for $460. This left me with a profit of $286. And it's always good to talk about the profit and cost of something that you might be selling. But another thing to keep in mind is the amount of time you put into it. So as far as the wooden build, I actually spent around 4 hours. I didn't track it as much or as closely as I wanted to. That's just a rough estimate of what I spent as far as time in the build. So that leaves me with a pretty good profit margin for the build. Continuing on to the next build that I sold, the Panda build. Now for this build, I paid $294 and I sold it for $550. So that leaves me with a profit of $256. As far as time, I also didn't track it as closely as I wanted to, but I would like to say around the 5 to 6 hour mark is around how much time I spent in it. So that leaves us with our final breakdown, and I'll put a quick sheet of everything with costs and all that. Another thing to point out is that because I've been doing this for a while, I've kind of accumulated a lot of parts. So for the wood build specifically, I had pretty much a free kit of RAM and a free kit of power supply, or a 550 watt power supply that I got for free. So that reduces cost quite a bit. And as far as the white build, the profit margins were just really good. It's pretty much made of deals that I've kind of slowly compiled over time. So that helps. And that's a wrap of episode 3. Till next time. What? 4 different builds? What are you doing here? So we just scored a 9070 XT. Yo, this packaging looks very suspicious. I wonder what it can be.